Welcome to the Systems Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Right, hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of Systems Simplified podcast, where we feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders on systematizing businesses. And this episode is brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group. At Business Success Consulting Group, we help businesses by documenting their processes and procedures and creating custom management systems so they can thrive. Suzanne, did you know that businesses need systems in order to actually thrive and grow and scale?
Absolutely, they do.
Yes. And in a second, I'm going to introduce you, and you're all about systems. So that's what we do here at Business Success Consulting Group. So check us out at bizsuccesscg.com. That's B-I-Z success, CG for consultinggroup.com, or call us at 503-662-2911. All right, and now it's my honor and pleasure to introduce our guest, Suzanne Hanifin. So she's also a dear friend of mine, a colleague, and she is the founder and CEO of Acumen Executive Search.
Well, thank you, Adi. Yeah, it is so nice to be here. So we started Acumen back in 2007. And like you said, I'm the founder and CEO. We're a small boutique recruiting firm. We do all retained recruiting across the country and actually across the world. So we have placed people in almost every continent now.
Absolutely. And you know, I know you're not totally sharing, but you place CEOs in companies that if you mention the names, everybody will know about those companies. So you definitely work with high profile companies and also startups, right?
So I think our market is really, it's kind of threefold, I would say. Definitely organizations that are scaling, needing to increase their leadership. And then of course we have our big, organizations that, continuously grow and change. And then the startup world. And we really focus in on the biotechnology space, the technology space, and software.
Awesome. Good. And just to mention, we met through Vistage. We're both Vistage members. So let's give a shout out here to Vistage and our Vistage chair, Ron Merriman, who's actually, I think, is the number one in the entire nation in terms of being a chair. So we definitely enjoy being in that group. And let's talk about your business and the systems that you implemented, because Suzanne you have fantastic systems in your business, and that's what allowed you to grow the business and be so successful. So let's start at the beginning. How did you start Acumen?
Well, I think like a lot of entrepreneurs, for me personally, I did not wake up one day and say, I'm going to be a business owner. I actually had a life change in 2007, which was a new baby. And so I was thinking, here I've come from this big international consulting. I fell into recruiting up in Seattle. And so years later, here comes this second child of us. And so again, it wasn't this intentional, I'm going to start Acumen and we're going to grow to this size and we're going to do it. It was, okay, now what? And so I had one client who, she's a wonderful CEO, Paula, who called me up when Max, my middle son, was 9 days old and said, so have you started your own business yet? And I was a little taken aback going, he's 9 days old. And she said, we just bought a company and I need this recruiting. And I thought to myself, okay, I can recruit on the side. I've been doing this for years. And I think Max was about 3 months old when I hired my first employee. I think he was 5.5 months old when I hired my second employee, and it just grew. And I think that, again, like most entrepreneurs, your business starts out being very reactionary, and it was full of, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? I need, a CRM system. I need some ATS system. I need to create all of this. But it's hard to take that step back and just say, here I've got all this business. I'm not sure what to do with this. At the same time, making those decisions on systems and efficiencies and processes. So we really shot from the hip for the first year, 2 years. And then, it's 2007. So by 2009, I think we all can recall what the economy was like. All of a sudden we had this slowdown. And it was such a great time for us to say, okay, we have these core clients, we're going to be fine, but let's really start looking at systems, processes, efficiencies. As a business owner, as you know, Adi, there's 2 ways to drive, revenue and gross profit. It's either sales, top line, or efficiencies, bottom line. And it's being able to really look at that almost systematically, like your expertise is to say, let's really start documenting, what do we need? What does that look like? And then, implementing that into your daily routine and your daily life.
Absolutely. So, it's a good point in terms of you have the top line, the sales, and then you have the bottom line. I mean, basically the efficiency. And tell me if you would notice that, if it's that true for you, that even in the sales, like you have a really good process that you take your clients through, right? So you're very efficient. So obviously it allows you to service more clients, but the way I see it is also, it allows you to create those amazing results that you create with your clients because you have that system, and that their experience is really good. So then they refer others, so they come back to you. And that also drives sales, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, in the introduction, I called us a small boutique. We're very small. There's 5 of us. And with that, I'm going to kind of put a human spin on this. Yes, we have these great systems and processes in place, but it also allows somebody to go on vacation and know that we have each other's back. We have a process in place, and we follow our steps. We've actually trademarked a lot of our process because we do feel it is incredibly unique and very different. And it starts, like you said, from the moment we talk to a potential client. How do we do our intake? We have, this incredibly detailed intake forms. We interview all stakeholders to get different perspectives. And then we build this customized strategy based on our clients' needs. And then again, at any point, any 5 of us can jump in at any time and really pick up where things got stopped or life. And I think that really has helped us not only scale to where we are today, but it also helps that consistency, that our clients are getting the same thing, no matter if they talk to me, talk to Chris, talk to Molly, Karen, it doesn't matter. And I think that's really important to have that consistency and everybody's on the same page. So expectations are clear. And again, if it wasn't for this intentional pause of saying, let's set this up and document it, put it into practice. And, we're looking at adding more people this year to Acumen. It helps with onboarding. Every piece of our business is helped through these processes and systems.
Absolutely. What I hear from sometimes I hear from business owners that they're afraid to systematize because they feel it will take away the creativity, right? It will create, it's almost like too corporate or too strict. But, my comeback to that is always, well, you need to have a system and then you can create on top of it because you have the human element that comes into place. And after observing it with you and with your company, your culture is amazing. and I know it starts with you, it starts with the top, but it's also the people you surround yourself with. So can you speak a little bit, or to just, if we have business owners that are listening right now, and maybe they are more in a creative field, or even recruiting, for me, it's also creative, because you have to understand the person in front of you, right? You have to understand the culture of the organization. You have to make sure you're finding the right match. So you can have, it's not just entering things into the computer, but it's really also, just being able to understand who you're working with and find the right match, the solutions, as I said. So can you speak a little bit to that point of creativity and systems?
Absolutely. And so we really do believe in that combination of the two. So yes, we do have these great intake forms and a solid built out CRM system, but we have a lot of white space. And that, I think, helps us, because you just don't want to ask a question, because that one answer will lead to 20 other questions. But we also take this approach because you have to remember, we're in the people business, that it's not just a client, we also have a candidate. And so because we work in this, fluid team environment, I may one day be working with client, the next day I'm working with candidates. And so we try to come from that perspective. What is the candidates wanting to know, and what does the client want to share? And so you have this, like what we call the white space to have those conversations, and again, to ask deeper questions based on their answers. And so I think that you can have a system. Again, these are the key questions we need to have answered, but you can do it in a way that you create your own white space, your own creativity, because you want things to be conversational. We're not an order taking firm, we're a relationship firm.
Right.
So again, we need to hear what is not being said as well, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense. I heard from a client, she told me that by documenting the systems, they now can hire people that match their culture, as opposed to having to look for those that have the experience, because before they needed more the experience in terms of, or the knowledge of their particular systems, because they didn't have the time to train. But that the trade-off was that they didn't always match the culture. So what you are saying is, okay, let's have the system so we can put that aside. So now we train you, you know how to move along the process, but now let's get people here that match the culture, or have that people skills to really understand and build those relationships, right? So that's basically what you were mentioning. In other words, when you mention it differently, but it's basically the same concept of, like, the systems are there in order for you to actually put, it's like the skeleton, and then you put everything else on top of it. You have the bones, but now let's put, the muscles and and the skin and everything else, and dress it prettily, so then we can actually use it in order to service our clients the best. So yeah, this is a very good point.
And we call it, our guidelines. What's that? They're not hard, fast rules. They're guidelines.
Yeah, a playbook. People call it a playbook, right? So it just makes it easier. So that's great. Yeah.
And you talk about onboarding. Again, we're in the same situation that, not only do we have this process narrowed out, that we call it our 9-step process, but each step we can drill down and really look at those processes. And when you talk culture, you're talking our language, because we truly believe that, yes, you have to have the skill sets needed, but really it's that cultural fit. And so as I'm looking at bringing on another recruiter, or maybe even two, that's a huge growth, going from 5 to 7 people. And if it wasn't for these processes, knowing that, okay, here's how we're going to onboard, everything is really listed out, we can then interview for cultural fit versus skill set. And we hope to teach this to our clients as well, because it's not just about finding the person, it's that whole, how do they become part of your team, and what's the onboarding process. It's not just filling out HR forms. It's really understanding each step. So then expectations are created. You can measure success. You know, you can put in a lot more data once you have it listed out.
Yeah, for sure, I agree. And also in terms of like the candidates being onboarded by your clients, it makes a huge difference, right? When your clients have an onboarding system that works.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting because we can see it, you know, we're outsiders, but we, through our intake forms and our intake interviews, we really feel like we know this organization, the culture, what works, what doesn't work, how they measure success, what the expectations are. And so now I'm trying to remember what my point of that was from what you said. But I think
in terms of having an onboarding system for the clients, you know, so then when you put a candidate into an organization that you can see very clearly their onboarding system, it just makes it easier.
Absolutely. And then the success. And so you look at their turnover rate and how fast do people turn. I think it's a direct correlation to that onboarding. And again, having clear processes, clear procedures, clear expectations. Once again, how are we measuring success? What does success look like? And we can really see the difference. And, you know, again, we work with some really large organizations and then really small ones. And it really does not matter the size. It has to do with, do they understand their business and how their business works?
Right, exactly. And also so with just the onboarding, and then when the full onboarding with also the training, I mean, that's where when the companies have a playbook, then it's probably easier. Well, it's not probably, it's easier to onboard a candidate and train them for sure.
Absolutely. Because, you know, I think most organizations spend so much money on their recruiting and retention. And it's not rocket scientists, you know, it's pretty simple to understand. It's the time you put up front saves you so much time on the back end.
Absolutely.
And, yeah. And like your example of now let's interview and hire for culture, not so much skill set, is really the key for longevity of employees.
Right. I agree. You know, I'm going to ask you a question. I don't know if you know the answer to it, but you know, we can talk about it in terms of, you know, you have so much experience working with so many businesses, right? Why do you think some businesses are resisting implementing systems or not having their systems documented or created or the processes documented? What do you think are the points that are stopping business owners or founders, entrepreneurs? And did you see any common denominator? Maybe the smaller one don't have it and that's why they don't scale. I mean, what's your experience with that?
Well, I'm not sure if I can answer that, but I can answer it for me. So it took us a couple of years before we really started to invest. And it is an investment. There's a big cost to it, whether it's human capital, you know, money for bringing in outsiders, consultants, what have you. And so I think for us, you know, we started off like a shotgun, like boom, go. And so the first 2 years were so reactionary that, you know, and reactive to our client needs, that, okay, let's, you know, everyone was a scramble and everyone was get it done now. Let's do it now. Let's go, 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 go. And like I said, you know, almost like the stars aligned early for us to where, you know, the economy did a little slowdown, you know, 2008, 9, 10, you know, and we were lucky enough, like I said, to have this moment to say, okay, let's pause here and let's really look at, again, our systems, our efficiencies. If a whole bunch of new business is not coming in, again, top line, then let's really look at that bottom line.
Yeah.
And how can we affect that and how can we change that? And so, you know, again, the other benefit that we did, which I think today it's almost every company is doing it, we started 100% on the cloud. We were very, very early on. We actually did a demo with 365 when it was in beta. because again, 2007 is 14 years ago. Today, I think people go, oh yeah, we're on 365 or Teams, AWS. But back then, people were really surprised by that, and surprised that we said, we're not technologists. We're too small. We can't have, servers and a whole bunch of technology. So I think those two things happened, that we were already prepared and very technology focused from the very beginning. And then having that pause. And I think when I talk to businesses as we're coming out of this COVID, it's those ones who actually paused and did some internal evaluations during this time, is coming out of this so much stronger and so much better prepared. Because I'll say this, we're busier today than we were in 2007.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Again, when people are looking to hire, to grow, to scale, to change, to pivot, they're going to need people. And so again, it's those organizations that have taken that time to make that internal investment are coming out the winners.
For sure. It's a very good point. And that's what I see as well, is that ability to take the time, because production will always take priority, right? Or at least in the mind of the founder, the entrepreneur, let's produce, because many businesses, basically at least my experience, we work with businesses that are very busy because they are scaling. That's why they bring us on, right? So in the middle of they are busy. When do they find the time to actually stop and systematize? So to your point, you had some external events in 2007, and some businesses had the external event we all experienced the external event of COVID, but in terms of some of them were super busy, even more busy than usual, and some of them slowed down. So you had that external event where you can actually systematize, or you can stop and then figure out, okay, this is what I need to do, and organize so you can have more of the production. But for those businesses that haven't slowed down, right, that they have to create it artificially, not to slow down by any means, but decide that it's important enough, so they create that artificial, okay, now we need to organize, and how do we do that? And as you said, it will take resources. It might take allocation of resources to do that, bring an external consultant, invest in a system. But if the trade-off is, if you don't do that, you're not going to come out of that stronger, or you're not going to continue to grow, because at some point you're going to reach a plateau and you won't be able to push through that without those systems. So I think it's a very good point. So it's either you have that, you make something that is not an opportunity into an opportunity, like you did, right? So the recession in 2007, you made it as you took it as an opportunity. Some businesses during COVID can take it as an opportunity. And if you don't have that, you're still continuing full steam ahead, create that opportunity by deciding to do that. That's what I see, that businesses are, they decide, okay, we can't continue like that anymore. Let's do it.
Yeah. And when we started, and like I said, for the first 2 years, we've really felt like it was, the wild, wild west. We were making things up. We were, again, every search was so new that it was exhausting.
Yeah.
I say that you can't, internally we say, ride the wave. Let's ride this out. Let's ride the wave. But if you going that fast and everything is reactionary and reactive, it's so hard to finally say, okay, enough, because we see it on the opposite end. People want to leave their jobs because they're burnt out.
Wow.
They, kind of are not seeing that clear path, that clear direction. Yes, we're busy, we're going, at some point it becomes unhealthy to your culture. And then you have to look long-term and just say, okay, if I lose, Bob, who's my ops person, what does that mean? and, or, Susie, my salesperson, you've got to slow down and kind of say, right now, this is great because we have all this business we're going, but how sustainable is that? Is that realistic? And what type of culture and reputation are you creating for this long term? I don't think any of us started a business to say, I'm going to make all this money and get out in 1 year. We tend to have this longer vision of, wow, I love what I'm doing. I want to do this for the rest of my career. And
Absolutely. It's the legacy that you leave behind, and it's the different, you are the one who said to me that, people don't leave their jobs because of compensation. They leave because other reasons, right? And what you just said is so true in terms of, that's what I see. Like, clients come to us where they're afraid they're going to lose their top employees, or even if they have if it might happen that they will lose that employee, then they want to document the knowledge because they realize that it's how vulnerable they are, right? In terms of, like, their knowledge is contained with one person. And then if they leave, then what? But we don't even want to get there, because that is part of your culture. You want to make sure that you don't burn out your people and you don't exhaust yourself. So it's an excellent points.
Well, and then, so we've talked about this scale and this busyness. There's a huge trend, and you look at our population and you'll understand why, of people wanting to exit their business. And so here we've been working with a lot of organizations to hire their new CEO or general manager, or whatever title you want to give this person, and have those founders step back. And again, when you look at their process and systems, the ones that are really well defined and documented, they always get a bigger return. And so again, because now they're going to people's, looking for that cultural fit, or looking to take them to the next step, versus we need to fix this. And for those organizations that want to sell, I can tell you, again, coming out of the finance world and M&A, we looked at processes and systems, and that played into a key, as well as the leadership team. How well can that organization run without that founder? And again, you're not going to get the return on your investment of umpteen years of working, growing this business, if things are not properly documented, systematized, automated as much as possible. And so I think it's important at the beginning on the scale up side, and then also on the exit side.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I see it all the time. Absolutely. Suzanne, this is amazing. Your information that you're sharing with us, I'm sure it's inspiring others to, if they're not if they didn't start their own business, to start a business. And if they are there in the midst of having, like, the production go, to actually organize, systematize, because it makes a huge difference. So that's great.
So yeah, and again, if there's one piece of advice I would give any entrepreneur, it's really to look at your business and really have a very clear, here's not only what we do, but how we do it. And I think that's how we have grown to differentiate ourselves to, there's a lot of recruiters and search firms and out there, but we're very clear on how we do it lends to our successes. And, we have an incredible retention rate. We have incredible repeat business and referral business. And I give it almost all the credit to what, that early work on how do we build out the processes and really identify how we differentiate ourselves.
Absolutely. And I would also say, just by knowing you for now almost 5 years, it's your vision. You're such a visionary, and you're very, it's your ability to think strategically, and I see why you're so successful and why you're very good at what you do and placing CEOs and basically the top management and leaders of companies, is because you can see the big picture and you see what needs to be done, and you approach it in a very analytical and strategic manner. So that also, it's a great contributor to that. And then that's one of the things you saw, is that you need those systems. And I'm sure that even if there was no recession in 2007, you would have figured out how to put those systems in place, because otherwise you wouldn't have gotten to where you are. So, but things just, you see, that's one. Another thing is like, you see the opportunity and you take advantage of it, instead of making it into, into something that can actually collapse the business or crash the business. You made it into a great opportunity to expand. So that's definitely, it's up to you. The head office is up to you for that. So that's great.
Yeah. Well, and I will say, and I think it needs to be said, I did not do it alone. I have incredible employees, and B, I have an incredible, resources to tap, and you're one of them.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
It takes a tribe, right? I mean, that's absolutely, I know that. And I feel the same about you. You're such a resource for me, and we bounce ideas off of each other, and it's great. So happy to have you here. Thank you so much for being part of my podcast. And before we end off, I would like you to tell the listeners how they can find you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Adi. So again, it's Suzanne, and the company is Acumen Executive Search. So it's www.acumenexecutivesearch.com. Reach out to us. We'd love to have a conversation and see if we can help you.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Systems Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.